Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. This is your host, Aminah Ahmed, and you're watching Muslim Network TV. Welcome back to another episode of Next Gen, where we speak about the issues of our communities, of issues around the world, and what young people are doing to address those issues. I know we have not been recording for a while now, but we are back every Wednesday from 7 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. Central Time on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Galaxy 19 satellite. Today's show is special because for our first episode on Next Gen about 2 years ago, I think, or 2 to 3 years ago, we had our guest that we have back today, Fatima Zaidi. Fatima Zaidi is a recent graduate from DePaul University, where she has obtained her bachelor's degree in journalism and has postgraduate plans of entering the broadcast market and foreign diplomacy. Currently, she serves as the lead PR agent for global nonprofit organization Who is Hussein and senior foreign correspondent for the Organization of World Peace. It is an honor to have Fatima here today. Fatima's journalism is phenomenal. Her reporting is amazing. It's something that I consume always to learn about issues that generally we don't hear about. So thank you so much, Fatima, for being here with us today to talk about broadcasting.
Assalamu alaikum, Aminah. It's terrific to be back. This show already is bringing back so many good memories and so many insightful and powerful dialogues about topics that the youth need to be discussing about. So it's always a pleasure to be on this show, and I'm so happy and excited for more episodes in the future.
Now, Fatima, the last time we had you, you were still a student, I believe a junior at DePaul, and now you've graduated. Tell us about that. How has postgraduate life looked like for you?
So postgraduate life is great. It definitely has a lot more ups and downs. Downs, specifically, the job hunt hasn't been as successful as it would be for other people entering the market. But it's great. I finally have gotten the chance to catch up on hobbies that I missed out on with school. It is so nice to see the excitement coming from my professors every step of the way, where they're like, okay, where are you going to go next? What are you going to do next? And also just taking this year to rediscover myself as a reporter, strengthening my skills, whether it be for writing, video editing, or photo editing. So it has been a very fruitful year, and I am very, very excited because I've left all the doors open to opportunities. So I'm excited to see what the next step will be.
We're so excited to see where you're headed in the future and in reporting and broadcasting. Now, Fatima, you kind of just hit on how job hunting has been hard for you because of your identity, especially because you are so accomplished. Tell us about some of the hurdles that Muslim women, people from South Asian backgrounds face when they get into this market.
So the biggest thing that I want to highlight is broadcast is a very competitive market. A lot of people, I'm mainly talking about the older generation here, but people will have this misconception that, news reporting is a very easy job. You sit in front of a camera for hours at a time, you report the news, you read off of a teleprompter, and that's pretty much your day. There's a lot more grunt work to that. There's a lot more stress that goes into that. And like a lot of my professors warned, when I was taking the classes and building the portfolio for broadcast, is expect to get a lot more no's than yeses. Because this would be like your first job right after college. And secondly, I've had private conversations with some of my professors who have been brilliant pioneers of local Chicago media. And they have told me that in your case specifically, expect to get a lot more no's than yeses, because you are a Muslim woman and because you do observe the hijab. And he was not wrong. There definitely have been a lot more no's than yeses. I'm pretty sure a lot of our Muslim community members, especially the youth, are familiar with the name Tahira Rahman. But she is local to Chicago. She is local to Naperville. She is absolutely killing it in Houston, in Texas. So she was a mentor of mine. And when I sat down with her and asked her what some of her hurdles were, she was telling me that when she was applying to different markets in broadcast, a news director once looked at her portfolio and said, I really would have said yes to you to bring you on the team, but in a lot of your video clips, you're wearing the black hijab. And I don't know if the black hijab really matches with your personality because you seem like a very bubbly, very extroverted person. And the black hijab kind of, he verbatim, he said it resembles a symbol of oppression, the black hijab. So it's just things like that that really, it does put Muslim women down where, this is a part of who we are, this is our identity. This is what makes us proud. This is
Right.
further what empowers us. And for us to experience this obstacle where other people are viewing this as a limitation to what we can bring to the table, to the talents that we can show to the world, to show, newsrooms or professional, arenas what our skills can do for the better. It definitely has been a frustrating process, especially as someone fresh out of college. I know a lot of people can relate to this, but with some jobs, there is that period of ghosting where for a month, 2 months, even 3 months, you get no response from them. And you're just in this very stressed mindset of, all I'm asking for is a decision. It's either yes, we can consider moving on to the next step, or no, and I can continue looking for other jobs.
Mhm.
But again, like I said, I've left all of the doors to opportunities open. So I'm welcoming everything that comes my way. And right now, I'm working with an extremely powerful, well recognized, and respected organization of Who Is the Saying as their PR agent. So I'm very much looking forward for everyone to seeing what's going to happen next in their Chicago chapter.
Right, inshallah. And Fatima, I mean, you talk about these hurdles, and I really, really feel for you as a Muslim woman as well. When I was considering what field to go into, I did think about journalism, and I had so many people tell me that as a Muslim woman in journalism, you're not going to make it. And obviously, for me, that was one of my options, and I did consider many other options, but that is the immediate response of the community. So not only are you facing, stereotypes from people outside of our own community when you're looking for jobs, you told me about some of your experiences with your professors as well previously, but also from our own community. How do you deal with that negative kind of response from our community?
So I'm not sure if you remember, but I think I vaguely touched on this in the first episode that we had, like
Right.
back almost 3 years ago. So one of the things that I talked about is this, I would say negativity from the community is something that I experienced since high school.
Mm.
So high school junior year was the time where I decided that I genuinely want to go into this profession. It seems very rewarding. I love to write. I still love to write. I have been commended for my writing skills by my teachers. So when I told community members that this is the path that I want to take, there was a lot of this isn't ideal for a woman with the busy schedule, with the traveling. I don't think this is the right path for you. Which, growing older, I realized that no one can choose what is the right path for you but yourself, right? Um, and then in college, even when I was a junior, especially when I was a sophomore, I had someone approach me and said, I really think you should strongly reconsider going into journalism because, I know someone who still hasn't gotten a job yet, and she changed from a medical profession into the news profession. And I had met with a very esteemed individual at an event, and she also told me that, my son, he is a reporter and he reports on stories that I was never really expecting him to report on as a journalist. So I don't think it's a very successful career. Um, Now that I have graduated, and now that I have developed what I would argue is an outstanding portfolio of talking to some of the most intelligent and most insightful people. Obviously, credits to you for introducing them to me over the past, 4 years, for writing, for video editing, for creating these news packages. Any Muslim woman can make it in this profession. People, young girls in the community, they always ask me, how are you surviving in this field? Like, don't you ever feel overwhelmed? Of course I do. But resilience is the key ingredient here for breaking down all of the barriers that this mainstream business has set up for you and this community has set up for you in order to find the success that you want. Success is only discovered by you, it's not discovered by any third person. So I always tell people that, when I was wanting to enter broadcast, Tahir Rahman was the only hijab observing journalist that I knew. And there still, I think I can count on one hand how many hijab observing reporters there are on the air in the US, which is not a good thing at all. And I was very afraid. I told my professor and I said, you know what, I don't really think this is the right profession for me. But he, as someone who has spent 40 years in the business as a producer, news director, and as a reporter himself, he would constantly reassure me and say that, this is your path, right? You're already leading a very empowering journey for these young women who look just like you by simply taking the steps to try and get into the market. I was always told that, journalism isn't going to pay you. You're not going to have a lot of opportunities in the business. I have written for so many amazing organizations. I have written so many amazing stories. Again, like I said, I'm working for a very prominent organization. So success will naturally find its way to you. You just have to not let the no's pull you down. And that is what I would say is making the impossible into the possible. Do not underestimate the skill sets that you have. Do not underestimate the talents that you have. Each and every single Muslim woman, each and every single Muslim, each and every single individual is gifted in their own way. This market and this industry needs people like you, especially with the determination that this next generation has at telling the truth and spreading information as widespread as possible. We need this right now in our newsroom. So do not ever sell yourself short and think that because of my lack of experience or because of the way I look, I can't make it a success in a business like this.
Fatima, your work, mashallah, it speaks for itself. I think that if anyone just searches up your name and reads some of your work, it is so impressive. It's so informing. And you, as an individual, you are so empowering. Fatima, thank you so much. We will be right back after our short break to discuss broadcasting and some of the hurdles that you, as a Muslim woman, face. You're watching us on Muslim Network TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Galaxy 19 Satellite, and Amazon Fire TV. We will be right back. Here with journalist Fatima Zaidi. Again, Fatima, thank you so much for being here today. Fatima was speaking about the hurdles that Muslim women face in the field of journalism, in broadcasting, as well as postgraduate life for her. Now, before we end here today, Fatima, I want to ask you something that has been on my mind ever since we had this conversation previously about journalism and your journey. Is there anything that before you stepped into this field, because now you're in this field and I can see that you're very confident, you're very empowered, but before you took a step into this field, is there anything that you know now that you didn't know then that you feel like would maybe change, kind of where you went to college, what you studied, any of that? Is there something that you would maybe tell your younger self?
So let's start off with academia first, because I think a lot of us, for the youth who are still in high school, they might think to themselves that, okay, well, I need to get into the best programs in the entire nation to get the best jobs. Well, yes, that is an ensured path to success in one way. I went to a highly prestigious program in the city at a private university, and it was a phenomenal program. I met, I was taught by news directors. I was taught by news producers. I was taught by journalists who still work in mainstream media. One of my professors actually, who unfortunately doesn't teach anymore at DePaul, but he was actually a reporter for CBS News. And one day we all took a field trip to CBS News. We saw what the morning newscast looks like. He gave us an entire tour of the backstage area, of where the reporters go to record, their voiceovers for their stories. So it was a beautiful, powerful experience. Um, so what I always tell the youth is that whichever program you go into, it is up to you on whether you make that successful or not. There are some students, for example, that went to Northwestern, to the Medill School of Journalism. There are also some kids who went to the Loyola School of Journalism. And there were also some students who went to the School of Communication at DePaul. All of us have, alhamdulillah, made it out successful and are very much looking forward to the next steps. So if there is a good program in your own local city close to home and it is financially better for you, I would suggest keep that as your top consideration. If you're not able to go to an out-of-state school or an Ivy League school for your bachelor's, you still have your master's, and who knows, maybe you also have your PhD in the future. So opportunities are always endless when it comes to academics. When it comes to jobs, it's very interesting because I would get in heavy arguments with two of my professors about this all the time. But over the years, I made it a point that if I wanted to go into broadcast, I didn't want to stick to local news reporting. I wanted to go for the big bucks. I want to go for international news. I want to focus on humanitarian rights issues. I want to talk about global affairs. I really want to do in-depth investigative, almost documentary style news stories that you see on places like Al Jazeera and Vice News, which I would say are my top two outlets for such amazing production. And every time I would tell my professors, they would say, oh, well, you're a little young. You don't have that much of an experience to go into a news outlet like Al Jazeera or going into an aggressive international market. And, I would always keep a very positive outlook on that, right? I never thought that I would get into DePaul, but I got in. I even got in with scholarship. I never thought that I would be able to graduate with an honors program because of certain situations that happen. I graduated in the honors program. I remember in my senior year of college, the last 3 months of my degree, I was so stressed out because I was in a situation where I desperately needed to find an internship to fulfill that requirement. I was rejected from 7 different places before the Organization for World Peace reached out to me, and they said, we would love to have you as a junior foreign correspondent. So again, it's that resilience. It's breaking down these barriers. It's breaking down these walls, and success is already waiting for you. So I would always tell my professor that, I've done the unthinkable already. As a Muslim woman, I wouldn't even say I have gotten my feet wet. I would always say I am almost knees deep in this industry. So I've already done the unthinkable in that sense. So if I want to get into an international market, if I want to get into Al Jazeera, who knows, in a couple of months, we'll see. But then that is something that can definitely happen. Like I said, every individual is so gifted and so powerful in their own way. And one thing that I will say as kind of like a message to all the viewers that are going to be watching is stay firm to the truth. There are a lot of interviewers out there who might say, do you come into the story with a bias already, or do you let the story flow for itself? And I have noticed in my experience that when the story flows for itself, the dots connect together by themselves and the truth comes out. So if you're writing a story, stay firm to the truth, provide as much information as possible. My cardinal rule of news writing is that I want to leave about 80%, 80 to 90% of questions answered as opposed to unanswered in my news stories, which is why, when I was still in school, My editors at one point for the Nation and World News section, they stopped cutting down my articles because they knew that, my article specifically would not be less than 5 or 6 pages. And the amount of knowledge that, the audience would receive is what makes this journey so empowering and so fruitful. Because again, you are building that bridge between what the audience does not know to what is the reality that is happening overseas, when it comes to the international market. So like I was telling you before we went live that, femicide is a huge issue in Italy that a lot of people do not know about. I have friends who are from Italy. They frequently go and visit their families, and they had no idea that every 3 days a woman is killed as a result of femicide, and that the country ranks the number ninth position on attacks launched against her by either a former spouse or a current spouse. So there are so many stories, there's so many voices, even in India, in our own country, that are waiting to be uncovered. And we need people that are dedicated and driven and telling the truth and telling these stories to come to the forefront of the market and really make journalism what it once was, not something that is male dominated, not something that is white dominated. Every single person has a story to share. And so I hope that the market in the next few years realizes that and opens up their doors, first of all, to hijab observing women like us and to other people who might feel like they are an outcast in industries like this.
And definitely, Fatima, you are covering stories that sometimes when you share articles with me or on your social media, I'm like, I have never heard of this topic before. And you are uncovering these topics and really doing a lot of us a favor by sharing that information with us. And you're right, your articles are always extensive. I've never read a short article by you. But Fatima, we are wrapping up here. But I don't want to end today before asking you one piece of advice that you have for young women who are in high school right now, who don't know if this is the career path that they want to take, especially because so many of them are discouraged from it. What is one piece of advice that you can leave them with?
So I think I'll kind of split it like 50-50 a little bit. So the biggest advice that came in handy for me was establish as much connections as possible right now. I established a lot of connections in high school, and I'm still establishing connections right now. And you never know, these this networking that you do could open so many doors for you, which is why I have been in touch with about 3 to 4 people who work in Al Jazeera. So that again is opening a doorway where I know the ins and outs of what is expected of me in that industry, so I can immediately step foot when there is an opening. Second thing is practice writing. I remember when I took my first journalism class, I was so overwhelmed because I was finally put in a situation where I had to write these professional articles. And when I saw so many edits that I had to make, I was so panicked, and I was honestly frustrated with myself that, I should know how to do this already because this is what I want to do. But as my earliest professor for journalism told me, that practice definitely does make perfect. So I would suggest and give the advice that, during winter break or even during summer break, whenever you have the time, every week, challenge yourself to write an article about something new. And honestly, I use Grammarly as an editor, so you don't have to go out of your way to find an editor. Use Grammarly, strengthen up your grammar skills, try to look for more strong words, really strengthen your skills of writing as much as you can. And by the time you get into college and start taking these journalism classes, everything will fall into place seamlessly. And do not forget to also source your professors for opportunities as well. They have an entire, I would say, booklet on their desk where they are more than willing to help their students. So do not be discouraged of the fact that you don't see women like us in the industry right now, but just know that there is a very powerful fight behind closed doors, and your time will come because I know my time is coming.
Definitely. And Fatima, when you do get on Al Jazeera, don't forget us. We'll definitely have you back then
I
to.
will still definitely be back. I will
Yeah.
definitely still make time for next gen, definitely.
Thank you so much, Fatima, for speaking to us about some of the struggles that you have faced, your accomplishments, what you have done to overcome those struggles, and obviously your advice to young women, to young Muslim women who want to go into this field, who are considering this field. Thank you so much, Fatima.
Of course, thank you so much, Aminah. I'm so happy and so glad that this show is on the air again. And I am very, very much looking forward to seeing all of the powerful dialogues that we will have with youth all over the world in the coming months.
And to all of our viewers, thank you for tuning in to Next Gen. After our long break, we will definitely continue to go live every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, from 7 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. Central Time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all.